We will go back to pure substances and mixtures. We are still under the title Pure Substances, but today we will hit the lesson about compounds. What are the objectives of our work for today? We have to define a compound, we will classify compounds, and we will identify compounds. How can you recognize them? We will remember what is a pure substance. Don't forget, a pure substance, it is any substance that has definite physical and chemical property. I will remind you of water. It has a density of 1 gram per centimeter cube. It boils at 100 degrees Celsius and melts at 0 degrees Celsius or freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. And it doesn't have the ability to burn, for example. They are made up of one type of particles as we have mentioned today. So to identify any pure substance, whether it's an element or a compound, all of them they have identical particles and they cannot be formed or broken down by physical means. And by cutting them or hitting them, you won't be able to change them into any new substance. What is a compound now? By definition, a compound is a pure substance that is made up of different kinds of atoms chemically combined. Compounds have different properties from the elements that make them up. What do we mean by this? This means that if you have two substances, they combine together to form a new compound. What happens to their properties? I have put here for you an example about salt. Salt, it is called sodium chloride, the scientific name. It is formed from sodium, it's an element which is a metal, and chlorine, which is a gas and it is a non-metal. Sodium is soft, silver white metal, and it reacts violently in water. If you put it in water, it almost explodes. While as chlorine, it is a gas. As you can see, it is a greenish yellowish gas and usually it's very poisonous. They combine together to form sodium chloride. Sodium chloride is a white solid, so it is not exactly like sodium. And it is not a gas like chlorine. It dissolves easily in water. It doesn't react violently in water, in other words. And it is safe to eat. It is not poisonous like a chlorine. So we can say that the properties of sodium chloride, which is the compound, is different from the properties of sodium and chlorine, which are the elements that make it up. What are compounds at the level of particles? These are the particles of water. I want you to take just one particle. Are all the particles identical? Yes, they are. So it is a pure substance. Now the question, is it an element or a compound? Take one particle and look at the atoms. Are all the atoms alike? In fact, you have red and you have white. So are they alike? No. Each particle is made up of two kinds of atoms. Since it is not made up of one kind of atom, it's not an element, it's a compound. It has different kinds of atoms. Let's take the other one. This is another compound. It's made up of particles. Let's take one particle. As you can see, all the particles are identical, but each particle is made up of two kinds of atoms. So a compound is a pure substance that is made up of two or more kinds of atoms that are chemically combined. Let's take this figure. I want you to pick any particle. You can take the one with the blue and the green only. Compare it to the rest. Can we say all the particles are alike? No, it's not a pure substance. It's not a compound at all. It's made up of different compounds, yes, but it's not a compound because it's not pure, because the particles are not identical. It is a mixture. What are some examples of compound? Sodium chloride, soap, water, sugar or sucrose, toothpaste, baking powder, vinegar, and many other examples. How are compounds classified? Compounds are classified by their pH, we will explain it later, by being organic or inorganic, and by their role in the body. We will study each one alone by a slide, so uh, stay with me. How are compounds classified by their pH? They can be classified by their pH according to the hydrogen atoms present in each compound into acids, bases, or neutral. Let me explain that the pH here. P, it stands for the French word, it means power, and H, hydrogen. That's why we always write P as small letter and H as capital. What are acids, bases, and neutral compounds? We will study them in the next slide. How are compounds classified by their pH? This is the first part we will study about compounds, their pH. pH, it is the power of hydrogen atoms in the compound. So P, we write it small because it is a French word. They represent it by P, and H stands for hydrogen. We always write it as capital letter. This is a model of the pH scale. pH scale, it shows numbers that range from 1 to 14. The mid number, which is 7, usually we call them a neutral. It means they are neither acidic nor basic. The number, as it goes from 7 towards 1, it is an acid. The number as it goes from 7 to 14, it is a base. Usually, as you go away from the center, as you go towards the extremities, towards 1 or 14, it becomes very strong acid or very strong base. As the number gets closer to 7, it will be a weak acid and a weak base. Let's name the examples of neutral compounds. Neutral compounds, they are water. They are neither acidic nor basic. Acidic compounds, you have milk, coffee, tomato juice, apple juice, lemon juice, and gastric juices. The gastric juice or the gastric acid in your stomach, it is one of the strongest because if you notice, it has a number on the pH scale which is 1, which is make it very strong. While as milk, it's close to 7, so it is a weak acid. Because it has a number of 6, it is not so strong. All of these acids, they are sour in taste. Let's go to the numbers from 8 or from 7 to 14. Between these two numbers, we have the bases. Any number that goes towards 14, it becomes very strong base. It's like concentrated solutions of alkalis. You are not responsible for it. Like a bleach, like Clorox, let's say, it can be a very strong base. While as let's go to baking soda or hand soap, they are closer to 7, so they are a weaker base. Don't forget, acids are sour, bases are bitter. And even if you look at the color, usually the color of acids they range towards red, while for bases they are ranges of blue. What about compounds classified as organic or inorganic? Organic compounds they contain carbon and hydrogen, while as inorganic compounds they don't contain carbon and hydrogen. The best examples for organic compounds, they are like sugar, the one that you eat. It has carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Since it has carbon and hydrogen, it means it is an organic compound. Benzene. All fuel are organic compounds. They have carbon and hydrogen alone, and we call them hydrocarbons if you remember. Plastic, cholesterol, proteins, all of these are organic compounds. They have carbon and hydrogen. While as inorganic compounds, they don't have carbon and hydrogen. It's like salt, sodium chloride, or water, H2O. How are compounds classified according to their role in the body? Biochemicals, I mean compounds that are produced in the body, can be carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Next slide will explain each one of them. Biochemicals, like carbohydrates, they are the source of energy. It means you eat them in order to get the energy you need in order to move, to do all the internal activities of the organs. Examples for them, they are like sugar, starch, starch in Arabic nisha, pasta, rice, banana, bread, fibers, etc. The second type, lipids. Lipids, they are usually the place where excess energy is stored. For example, if you eat more than enough, all of the extra energy that you got from the food, it will be stored in the form of lipids. They are very important because they will be stored and they can be used later in case you don't have enough energy source. They are important because they make up your cell membranes, which is very important. Examples, they are oil, wax, butter, wax, shama. Proteins. Proteins, they regulate chemical activities in the body. All activities that happen within your body, proteins are responsible for it. And they build and repair body structures. In case you have any sickness or anything broken in the body, the proteins are responsible for repairing it and building it back. That's why proteins are very important in our diet. Don't ignore this fact. Examples are poultry. Poultry means the meat we get from birds or chicken, meat, the red meat, fish, beans, eggs, milk, and many more. Nucleic acids, and these are very important now because they build up your DNA and RNA. They contain the genetic information and help the body build proteins. Without them, proteins that regulate the chemical activities in your body and build and repair body structures. If we don't have the nucleic acids, it means that you cannot build your body. Where do we find them? You can find them in any kind of food that is fresh. That's why you are always advised to get the best kind of food, vegetables, meat, fruits, beans, everything. And it's better to be of a better source in order to get the proper amount and the best kind of genetic information needed for your body. How are compounds classified according to their role in the body? They are classified by this picture, it's very clear. Proteins, they are found, even cheese, I forgot to write cheese before. Cheese is very important. That's why we always have it as a breakfast. And you to take your breakfast, you include cheese or labneh. They contain proteins. Carbohydrates, even fruits and vegetables have carbohydrates like potatoes. But too much sugars are not healthy, so watch out. Lipids, they are like butter and oil, like you see it in the picture. And DNA, look, they wrote you here the molecule of life. That's why it's very important to eat foods that are um, very fresh and of good quality in order to build up your body.